see you in some drama this weekend. We've got a matchup going down in Pittsburgh as Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers are playing host to the Green Bay Packers. Now, this is interesting because of 18 years spent wearing a G helmet, Aaron Rodgers did, and now he faces his former team for the first time ever. And with that, we bring in our friend of the show, a Packers expert, as we like to call her, from NBC 26 in Green Bay, Kelly Hallinan.
Hello.
What's going on, Kelly?
Yeah. Always such a warm welcome.
Oh, yeah, girl. That's like, and here he is, Aaron Rodgers. And that's how I give the Aaron Rodgers treatment. Kelly, so many things we got to talk about here. But honestly, you were just telling us something in the commercial, which I think viewers are really interested in knowing, which is this game and matchup and weekend can provide a lot of emotions, you know, competition, hatred, annoyance, jealousy. Instead, it feels like the media contingency, the coverage of this game is quite appreciative of something that Aaron Rodgers did for them in the last 24 hours. Can you let people know what that is?
Yeah, so he actually did a Zoom call just for Green Bay local media. So he did his typical Steelers media availability on Wednesday, but then on Thursday, he did a Zoom call with all of the former reporters and beat writers that covered him for those 18 seasons. But that was super cool of him to make time and join the Zoom call. He actually, when he signed in, you could see him kind of scanning the room at all of the different faces, recognizing a lot of familiar people that used to cover him. And he was joking, asking, like, why doesn't this person have their camera on? So really good vibes on the Zoom call. But he said how people in this building are kind of building this up as a revenge game, or people not in the building, but people are building it up as a revenge game. And like kind of when Brett Favre played the Packers in 2009, and Rodgers said, what am I avenging? Like he said, of the best years of his life in Green Bay is nothing but love for the organization. He said that kind of everything in his life that's great is because of his football career, and his football career started, and he said, will one day end in Green Bay. So he said this game would mean a lot more if it was at Lambeau Field and, you know, at a place he spent so much time and has such fond memories. But he's already heard from a lot of the staff and trainers and the team photographer. So he's excited for this reunion, and it was cool to reunite with him on that Zoom call ahead of the big showdown.
I'm just happy he's not in a bad mood still from getting tackled.
Yeah.
I mean, I figured he'd cancel interviews, but we're back. Glad to see that he's in a good mood. But here's my question. For Love, this is obviously a quarterback that he knows very well. How do you think he's taking this situation with this being a little bit of a homecoming for Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah, it's so funny you mentioned Rodgers getting tackled, because Jordan Love was actually asked if he saw that, and Jordan Love smiled like, yeah, I saw that. But I was really excited to see him on Sunday. He opened up this week a lot about how when he arrived in Green Bay, he didn't really know what to expect, but Rodgers welcomed him with open arms. And 2 of the 3 years that Love was learning under Rodgers was an MVP. So he said that trying to replace that and build his own name was really difficult. But Love said he took so much from Rodgers: footwork, cadence, consistency. And something cool, we actually asked, like, when's the last time you guys have talked? And Love said they actually text occasionally, wishing each other good luck throughout the season. Rodgers will text him about plays that the Packers are running and complimenting him on his footwork and even giving him pointers after games. So Love said it's awesome to just get that feedback from a legend like Rodgers, and the fact that he continues to do it, even though he's not even in this city anymore, is really cool to hear. But heading into Sunday, I think that's going to be a fun reunion to watch. And Rodgers said on Zoom at the top of his list, if they were to do any jersey swaps post game, that he's got to get J Love. So that'll be something cool to kind of watch.
You love that, particularly knowing the history that we saw sort of unfold through the media, Kelly, between Rodgers and Love. What stood out to you from that conversation that you've been having this week about the fact that Rodgers is going up against these guys? And he talked about the Zoom. What stood out to you that he spoke with just the Green Bay media? Anything specific?
Yeah, I think just it shows his appreciation. You know, no matter how fans might feel about Rodgers leaving and wearing a different jersey, it shows that a part of him will always be in Green Bay, and he'll always have respect for Green Bay. And you know, it's cool to just see the relationships that he built and how so many people who covered him and worked with him on the staff are still around. And you know, this week there was a lot of reflection in the locker room with the players as well, not even just on that Zoom call with the media, but Keyshawn Nixon, cornerback for the Packers, had a cool story that when he got to Green Bay, he was miserable and he was really uncomfortable with being with so many new faces. And Rodgers would go up to him and say, Key, why are you so angry? And so he started just randomly giving him these big hugs, and it kind of became their thing. And so it was cool to kind of hear the players reflect and talk so fondly about their time with Rodgers. And Rodgers talked about that on the Zoom too. And when asked about Keyshawn and reuniting with some of these former players, there's only about a dozen that overlapped with him, but he said, did Keyshawn tell you I used to hug him? So kind of take those trips down memory lane with both Rodgers and the team.
You know, the thing I love most about this game is you're starting to hear about the stories about Aaron Rodgers, not just as a player, but as a teammate, as a human being, and it's so cool to see. But this game is more than just about Aaron Rodgers and his former team. The Steelers' defense is going to go against a young Jordan Love, who is a promising quarterback in this league. How do you see the Green Bay Packers offense led by Jordan Love kind of trying to find a way to attack the Steelers in that front that they have?
Yeah, head coach Matt LaFleur said that front is phenomenal. He said it could be one of the best in the league. He said that they're a lot more aggressive with their scheme. They're playing more man coverage, but there's been a lot of conversation with the Packers offense about TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, Jalen Ramsey. In terms of kind of taking advantage of their opportunities, Josh Jacobs has been on a tear. He's had 6 rushing touchdowns in the last 3 games. One of those he called a flu game because he was sick. And then last week, he was dealing with a calf injury and was on a pitch count. He said maybe he could have found the end zone a few more times if he wasn't limited. So if that says anything about the type of competitor he is, to still be able to consistently be putting up these numbers, despite kind of being injured, being sick. But Jacob said this week he feels good. And these types of high energy games that have so much buzz around them bring out the best version of himself. So I think he's going to try to take advantage in this one. Another note for the Packers offense, you mentioned Jordan Love. He might have another weapon in Christian Watson, who's been recovering from an ACL tear for the last 9 months. He suffered it in the regular season finale against the Bears. It's been a long recovery process, but every week we've been like, all right, how much longer? Are you ready to play? And he said this was the first time he was kind of fully said his plan is to play. And his interpretation, he said, from the team is that he will play. But of course, he and head coach Matt LaFleur said it's up to medical, it's up to the trainers. So that will be something to keep an eye on these next few days, because Watson brings size, speed, athleticism, so much flexibility to this Packers offense. So Jordan Love might have another weapon, which I'm not sure the Steelers defense will be too happy about.
Why do I feel like every time I hear about an ACL recovery timeline, we shave a month off? It's ridiculous. That was the last year regular season game, and here he is. He could be available. Kelly, you're crushing it. You're so helpful to us. I believe the last time we talked was right when Micah Parsons got traded to Green Bay. And you did such a good job of setting the table for what it could be. Now, what has it become for this Packers defense, considering what he did last weekend against Arizona and the damage he could reap upon Aaron Rodgers this weekend?
Yeah, the week 1 home opener against the Lions, when he had that sack, it was like straight out of a movie. But and he hasn't exactly shown up on the stat sheet, I feel like, the way people expected. It's kind of been his impact and his pressures that aren't necessarily on the stat sheet in terms of sacks and things like that. But in the last game, 3 sacks and 6 pressures for Parsons, and they were at crucial moments. If Parsons gets a one-on-one matchup like he saw several times against the Cardinals, he's going to need to take advantage of that against the Steelers. He knows Rodgers has seen every look and every disguise, so they have to make it challenging this week and confuse him and get after him. But you guys will enjoy this. So Aaron Rodgers told us on Zoom that he actually did a jersey swap with Micah Parsons a few years back. I think it might have been Parsons' rookie year, but he said on Zoom that he saw Hall of Fame potential, and he said Parsons is just an incredible player and one of the rare guys over all of his 21 years in the league, 18 as a starter, that you have to account for on every play of where he is. But we asked Parsons, obviously, about going up against Rodgers this week, and he said, you can't let Rodgers get to his spot, because when he's in sync, it's like poetry. He said every throw is on the money. Everything is in sync. So Parsons and the rest of the pass rushers are just going to need to find a way to be disruptive this week. But hopefully he can kind of take what he did last game against the Cardinals and build on that momentum against a big one in the national spotlight on Sunday.
Rodgers engaging in a jersey swap with Micah Parsons is about as close as I can imagine Aaron Rodgers wants Micah Parsons to him. After the game, pleasantries, the pads are off. He wants none of that business for Packers Steelers this weekend. Kelly Hallinan from NBC 26 in Green Bay. We appreciate you so much, girl.
Yeah, thank you guys
Good to see you, Kelly.
Absolutely.